the end of July, which means it is time for our reading wrap-up. I'm going to be doing things differently this time. I'm going to group everything together by genre. That way I can put the timestamps in the description below, and you can just skip to whichever genre interests you the most and what you most want to hear. That way you're not skipping through the video and trying to navigate through things you don't care about. So hopefully that'll make the process easier for both me and you guys. I think I'm going to start off with sci-fi because I do feel like I read the most sci-fi this month. I kind of went on like a Star Wars marathon, so I have a lot of Star Wars books to go through with you guys, so I hope you like Star Wars. So I have a feeling this is going to be a long video, so let's just kind of get into this. Starting off, the first book I read was Dooku Jedi Lost, and I really enjoyed this one. This was actually a quick to get through read. I think the audiobook was only about 6 hours, but the perspective of this one was really interesting because this is basically the story and past of Dooku being told, but it's being discovered through the point of view of Ventress. So basically this is back when Ventress first starts being taught under Dooku as his apprentice, and she's discovering more about him. He basically sends her on like this thing to basically learn about some of his past stuff, and then while she's digging through all of his backlogs and stuff, she finds all these stories and like journal entries from when he was younger. And so she basically goes on this like binge listening to all of his backstory, and it was really interesting. You really get like a good depth of Dooku. Like if you like Dooku as a character and you always feel like he's underdeveloped, this is a good book to pick up because this really goes into detail about his past, what his life was like as a Padawan, how he met his family again, how he kind of went to the dark side, what like kind of set it off. And it's just really good, and I thought the viewpoint of Ventress was really like an interesting take to do with it. It was definitely creative, so it's not just Dooku like monologuing his own backstory. So I thought that was actually a good like story mechanic. And when I first started listening to it, I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it or not, but I actually think it worked out really well. And then by the end of the book, it was really good because it was basically like Ventress trying to figure out whether she wanted to trust Dooku or not. She wasn't fully sure whether she wanted to go the dark side, and this kind of like helped her with her resolve and then her basically committing to being Dooku's apprentice. So it was really good, and I really highly recommend this one. The next one I read was Phasma. I wasn't a fan of this one. I guess I feel like it just wasn't really what I was expecting it to be. It was kind of described as being Phasma's like backstory and like what she was doing in the Imperium, and in a sense it did kind of do that, but I felt like the plot like device and the way they decided to narrate the story of Phasma was really odd, because let me explain. This is not told from Phasma's point of view. This is not told from a second person's point of view. This is told from a third person's point of view who wasn't there for the events and just heard the story secondhand from another person. And I did not like that. I thought that was a really weird way to try and tell this story. So basically, it starts off with Cardinal, who is basically the New Order's version of a stormtrooper. He's dedicated, loyal, and he wants information from this rebel. How he knows this rebel has this information, it never says or goes into details. He just captures this rebel, decides to interrogate her, and he's like, tell me about Phasma. And she's just like, well, I don't want to. And then she's like, oh, all right, I guess I'll tell you because you like brought me water or some shit. And so it was just kind of weird because she's like, oh yeah, I heard this story from this other person who was part of like Phasma's clan. And it just seemed like a really weird way to tell the story. So throughout the book, you're just getting bits and pieces of Phasma's story from this rebel. Basically because Cardinal, worst soldier ever, he wants to interrogate her and he tries torturing her. He's not very good at it. Anyway, basically I feel like it's even dumber, his reason for wanting all this information about Phasma is because he was Hux's grandfather's like special lieutenant soldier guy that was like on his bodyguard, and then when they found Phasma, he got kicked out. So basically he got demoted and he has hurt feelings about it, and so he wants like information to like take her down or like get her thrown out, I guess. And this takes place before the movie, I think, because it still talks about like Kylo Ren and stuff. So I think it takes place before the oh god, what was it? I don't remember the trilogy names. The first of the newest 3 ones. There we go. But yeah, just, and like towards the end, even like Hux, he like basically he thinks Phasma killed Hux's grandfather, and he wants like revenge for that, not just the hurt feelings for like getting kicked out. And then there's like a conspiracy going on, and then he goes to Hux, and then Hux is like, God, you're such a dumbass. And I'm like, thank God someone else is saying it. But I think it's bad that a character is so dumb that another character has to like call them out on it. I felt like they should have really thought about that when writing this character. But maybe he was meant to be that way. I don't know. I just don't understand how this soldier is so incompetent and somehow still managed to get like the rankings that he did. But Phasma's story I thought was actually really interesting. It was the best part of the book. I kind of found myself skipping other parts of the book just so I could get back to listening to Phasma's backstory. She's basically stranded on this planet where they're very tribal. They had like a nice big city, and then technologically got destroyed for whatever reason, and they've just been trying to survive. They've had a hard time having like children and stuff, so they're basically warriors trying to scrap around in like in a post-apocalyptic world. They're fighting with like this other tribe, and then Hux's grandfather, I can't remember his first name, so we're just gonna call him Hux Granddaddy. He crashes on the planet, and then he finds them, and then it like turns out that there's like a cloaking thing or reason. I can't remember exactly, but like there's some reason as to why the planet never popped up on the Imperium's radar. It was like something like that. But they find him, and he's far away from his ship because he like ejected himself out of this ship before it could crash. So he's like, hey, if you take me back to my ship, I will reward you. The Imperium will like take you in and give you all the food and stuff. And so of course her clan is like, I don't know, we don't like trust this guy, we don't really know him. And of course the clan leader is her brother, and they get in a fight over it, and she's just kind of like, fuck you guys, I'm going with the Imperium. And so she basically goes on this journey with the Imperium guys, some stormtroopers, to go and get a ship, and then they go on the ship and they go back to the Imperium. It's everything in between. Like, I don't want to spoil it, but I feel like the way they try to portray Phasma, they never show her in a good light. But the narration style, when it goes back to like the rebel being interrogated, she like tries to justify everything that Phasma does. And I just don't feel like that works very well. It's just really weird. So like, I'm gonna try really hard not to spoil this. But if you don't feel interested in reading it, you can go ahead and listen. If not, you can go ahead and skip forward. But basically, she she gets in a fight with her brother, right? And then she takes all of their food, she takes all of their warriors, she stabbed the rivals clan's leader because she wanted the resources for them only. And she's always like, I'm doing this for the tribe, I'm doing this for the tribe. And it's like, what? You just stranded them. So like, when he crash lands, he falls into the other tribe's territory. And then she's like, we need to go and find this guy and claim him for ourselves, even though we're intruding on the other clan's territory, and we're gonna destroy this truce, and we're gonna kill their leader, and I'm gonna act like I'm right for it. And then she just like gets in an argument with her brother, and then she like gets mad, and then she takes all the warriors, all the food, basically everything, and strands her tribe to go out with Huxley's granddad to go and find his ship. And it's like, but she's like, it's for the tribe. And it's like, what do you mean? They're already starving to death. You took what food they have. You left them with no protection because you took all the warriors. And you left them for dead because now the rival tribe is going to come and murder them because you killed their leader. And then I hated it towards the end because before she gets on the ship, she finds her brother again. They've been tracking her down throughout like the whole journey. And then the person who's like recording her point of view is all like, oh, her brother was in the wrong. He shouldn't have like come out here. They should have like tried to restart over again. And it's like, with what? What are they supposed to restart over with? You guys took everything. There was no food. Who's going to train these new warriors when you took all the warriors? Like, I don't know what she expected them to do. And for some reason, she just murders everyone in the tribe. And it never really like describes why they're there. Why they like followed her. It never described if it was like for revenge or if they like changed their mind after they were stranded. They maybe were like, hey, maybe she's right, maybe we should go, or maybe we should go because now we have nothing. It just never described why. I guess it kind of made it feel like it was vengeance from the brother, but like, I don't know. And she just murders everyone, and they kind of act like it's a good thing, but it's just like, why? So she just murders everyone in the tribe for no real reason. Like, I could understand wanting to kill her brother, but then she like, this little girl who's like 6 or 7, who is very hailed by the tribe because she's like the first living kid that they've had in years. And she was just gonna murder and mow down this little kid for no reason until Huxley's granddad is like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, that's like, you know, that's like a future soldier. What are you doing? Like, just... But it's all framed as being like a good thing. And I think that's what I don't understand about this story, is why they're trying to act like all these really fucked up things that Phasma did is a good thing. I just don't get it. And I think another thing I don't like about Phasma is that she's too perfect. It's kind of that Mary Sue problem where she just like magically cuts through everything. She's the only one that's competent somehow. I don't know. It, like, her story was interesting enough, but it just, I don't know. It didn't really feel like there's any stakes to be had, you know. It didn't have like that tension because you just knew she was gonna win every fight, basically. And one last thing that I thought really bothered me is they try to do like a gotcha at the end where they're like, oh, she like did this horrible thing to her brother just to be like, I show you how horrible Phasma is kind of thing. But it just didn't work at all. It really fell flat because it's like, she's been really horrible through this whole story. Like, this is such an unneeded plot device that it was just like, yeah, no shit, she did that to her brother. Like, that makes perfect sense for Phasma at this point. No one would question that. It was just, I don't know. It was just not what I was expecting. I think it would have been better if it was told at least from Phasma's point of view, so you could actually, like, know what she was thinking in her head and why she, like, did what she did. I think from a third person's point of view, you don't get, like, that inner monologue, so you don't get like that reasoning behind it, and I think that kind of failed the story a bit. But I think that's all I really have to complain about. I won't like spoil the ending or anything for you guys, but I definitely think this is one you could easily pass on. Unless you like the newer Star Wars content, this isn't one I would recommend. Anva, what are you doing? What are you doing? Hello, little lady. I have a guest. Yeah, what are you doing? So the next one I listened to was Thrawn. Shamelessly, I did have the hardback of this book, but I thought listening to it would be better, as Timothy Zahn is quite a bit of a slow burn writer. Unfortunately, the audiobook actually kind of found to be a little bit more boring. This is a good series. I do really enjoy it. It is just very slow to start. Anva, what are you doing? What are you doing? So, I do really like the opening chapters. The opening chapters is very good. It basically starts out after this takes place like after he's met Anakin and all that. He's stranded out on the planet. He's been exiled from his people. God, that's such a grumpy look on the. So he's basically been taking out these stormtroopers that have been landing in his area because he wants to try and take the parts from their stuff. And so they discover him, realize who he is when he says his name. And they're like, oh wow, you're like that master tactician guy. And he kind of like, how would you say that? He like kind of sells himself to the Empire. He's like, you know, I could be good to like the Emperor. I can do like all this stuff. So they're like, all right, we'll take you to the Emperor. And the Emperor, of course, because of his dealings with Anakin, like immediately like recognizes his name. And he's like, all right, I'll take you at your word, and we'll put you in like the academy and stuff. And I feel like this is kind of where it starts to drag, is where he's in like the academy and he gets out, and it's like a slow burn, but it does need that exposition, because I do actually think that this one is the current lore for Star Wars. I believe the other ones Timothy Zahn got put in the Legends, so it makes sense that they need all this exposition and build up, especially for the newer fans of Star Wars. They may not know who he is. He's usually in like the extended universe stuff and like in all the side series, so it does make sense that they need to like build up his character more. It does pick up more towards the end. I just wish it kind of picked up a little sooner. I do have the second book and I do plan to read it, but I think I might take a break from it for a while, and I'll probably pick it up maybe in a couple months. I don't know. We'll see. I hope the second one is a lot more thrilling, I guess you could say. The next one I listened to is The Living Force. This one I have mixed feelings about. It was really interesting. The concept, at least, was interesting. This is also another slow burn where it slowly builds up throughout the story. There's multiple point of views to go through, so it can be a little jumbling, to say the least. Basically, it starts off with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. They're on a transport ship with some people, and then they get robbed by smugglers, and of course they fight off these smugglers and such. But they're talking to like the people afterwards, and they were talking about how they didn't really like the Jedi. They felt like they had abandoned them, and they didn't, they weren't in this sector anymore because they've become a bigger part of like the Republic, and they spend most of their time around Coruscant and like the core worlds now. So they were feeling like they were really getting rejected by the Jedi, and Qui-Gon, of course, wants to fix this. This is what he calls the living force, is when you're dealing with like the everyday people, while he thinks the council deals with like the universal force, which is the like bigger aspects of the force, like the prophecies and the bigger foretold stuff going on. And he thinks because the council focuses so much on the bigger picture that he's ignoring the actual people, which is who the Jedi are supposed to be there for. So he takes this idea to the council, and the council gets offended and is like, oh no, that's nonsense. But Yoda, of course, is like, no, we should listen to him. We should start being a part of the people more. And so we get like these different perspectives of some of the council members and the Jedis going out and helping the people. And of course, these smugglers throughout the book are part of the main plot towards the end. I won't spoil it, but it was interesting. A bit of a slow burn. If you don't like slower stories, you might not like this one. But I definitely think the next one I listened to is Lords of the Sith. This one was really interesting. If you're a fan of Darth Vader and you're a fan of him being like that mysterious figure in the background, I think you would really enjoy this one. This goes into depth more with Vader's relationship with Palpatine and the Emperor. Basically, this is, I think, right after he joins with Sidious. So it was very interesting. If you like Twi'leks, or Twi'leks, however you pronounce it, you'll probably like this one too. They are fighting for Ryloth again. So there's a lot of different POVs between like the Twi'leks and Vader. It's very good. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it, but this is like some good old-fashioned Star Wars. So if you really like that classical feel, you will definitely love this one. And then the last one I listened to was Dark Disciple, and I loved this one. This one is based off of the Clone Wars series. If you really like that series, you would love this one. It definitely keeps that same tone and the humor to it. Unfortunately, they never really got to go into Ventress's backstory like they were wanting to in the show, but luckily they were able to do that with the book, and I'm so glad they did. This goes into, like, not too into depth. It's not very romancy, but this explains a lot more of the relationship with Boss and Ventress. And it was really good. This is when she leaves Dooku. She's just kind of out doing her own thing. This is kind of where she makes amends with the council. And basically the plot for this book is that they want to use Ventress to get to Dooku and they think using Voss as a way to like kind of spy their way in with Ventress and partner with her to get to Doku, and of course this ends up to like a romance between the two of them. And like I said, don't worry, there's not really any romance. It's very briefly like described. And oh man, it's really good. It's really sad. You really start to see Voss's turn to the dark side, but you also see Ventress like turn more towards the light side as she realizes like how she's pushed Voss and what she's done to him. And I won't spoil the ending, although I'm sure a lot of you probably know. I'll just say this ends exactly where the short story on Disney Plus picks up. But it's really good. I highly recommend this one. So that is all these Star Wars books I read. There is like 2 more other sci-fi random books that I've read, and that is Battlefield Earth. That name may sound familiar because that is by L. Ron Hubbard, and if that name also sounds familiar, I feel like it probably should, but if you don't know or you haven't really paid attention, that is the guy who made Scientology. Yes, he made a book in the 80s. Is it awful? Is it as awful as people say it is? Yeah, it is. Is it as bad as the Battle Earth movie, John Travolta? Well, let's just say the movie is actually pretty accurate to the book in a really weird way. It is definitely the pulpiest pulp fiction of books. This was from the time where they were getting paid by word, so I decided to listen to the audiobook for it. That is a 48-hour long book, and I have mixed feelings about it because it started off really interesting, but you can kind of see where it started to drag, and then things got kind of nonsensical. I do think this is one, a lot of people said they enjoyed this when they were younger, and then reading it now as an adult, it wasn't as good. And I can definitely see why. It is kind of a little humorous, but I do feel like that humor is kind of made more for a younger audience. I do feel like it doesn't really, like tone-wise, I'm not really sure who the book is made for, or like the audience the book is made for. I'm pretty sure it's meant for adults, but like tonality-wise, it does feel like it was made for like a younger generation. But it does also feel like a product of its time, as most things from the 80s were very corny, and they were just trying and experimenting with new things. The plot line for this book, of course, is humans, technology kind of failed. They don't have it anymore. They kind of went back to being more tribalistic, civilization lost kind of thing. And then there's these overpowering aliens, and one of them is like, hey, humans, I guess, are like this rare species. And then one guy is just kind of like, let's go hunt us some humans. So basically, poacher aliens are gonna go poach some humans. And our main character, basically, it starts out as Johnny Goodfellow, which is the main character. I know the names are just, but yeah, he's like, man, stuff's happening to humans. They're not being born right. They're coming out like deformed. No one's living long. And he's like, there is something in these mountains. There's something not right about this area. We should move because like all the animals are plentiful. They're being able to repopulate. He's like, maybe there's something better out there yonder. And the tribe is just like, no, you're dumb. Stop it. And he's like, well, fuck you guys. And so he goes out, does his own thing, explores, finds the city, and then that's when the aliens come, basically hunt him down and capture him and take him to a ship. And then that's kind of when the story starts to drag a little, because the story from the humans is kind of interesting, but the story point of view from the aliens is kind of weird. Like, they're from a mining company, and this is kind of like, the 80s, where they feel like the companies were going to take everything over. You can really see that narrative in this book. And the aliens feel like this caricature of like CEOs and businessmen. And it feels like every point of view from these aliens is like some kind of business meeting. A lot of people like talk about how they think he put his like Scientology views in this book. I didn't really see it. A lot of people like brought up how he talks about like therapy as like being like a bad thing and stuff in this book, but I feel like that's also just kind of a product of the time. That just wasn't like something people really talked about in the 80s. That was seen as more, not like necessarily a taboo, but like that was something people are like, oh, people with like psychiatric mental problems did that kind of thing, you know? So that's just kind of how it was viewed back then. But also, there's a lot of religions that are like anti-therapy and doctors and medicine, not just Scientology. So to me, that's not really like a Scientology specific view. I thought the more interesting thing was his, like I said, the way they portray these aliens. There's definitely like anti-corporatism in it, and like these aliens being a caricature of like the businessmen and CEOs. I thought that was a much more interesting commentary, and it was definitely not a perspective I expected from him. So that's kind of my thoughts on this book. I didn't finish it, unfortunately. I got about halfway through and then just kind of started losing interest in it. So maybe one day I'll finish it. Maybe I'll pick it up again later. I don't know. Oh, where's my library? I lost it. Where'd it go? There it is. So, the last sci-fi book I read is another book by Timothy Zahn, and that is The Icarus Plot. Again, this one is a bit of a slow burn, but I really like this one. This one is like a good old classic sci-fi. It kind of reminded me of Firefly and Serenity. If you like that show, you would definitely like this one. It's very much like that, not like space pirates, but like they were like ex-bounty hunters and stuff, and just kind of retired, trying to just make it in life. And then this guy comes and he's like, I need you to help me like track down and find this person. And he offers them a lot of money for it, and they're like, do we really want to do this? But then they go and do it, and it's kind of like, it's not the most unique of storylines, but it's definitely fun. The characters are definitely interesting. It has a good concept to it, and it definitely picks up halfway through towards the end. This is a series, so I do think I'll be picking up the second volume soon. I don't really want to like spoil the ending that much, because there is a lot of like story and plot points that mix together to kind of do that hurrah moment, so I don't really want to get into detail on it too much. So that is what I've read for the sci-fi. On to the contemporary. I only read one contemporary this month, and that is If Cats Disappeared from the World. And this was actually a really cute story. It's basically this guy, he's kind of like, how would you say that? He's going through the works. It's kind of one of those stories where you don't really realize what you have until it's gone. And so the devil kind of appears in his life, and he's like, I can make a deal with you. So basically the story for this book is he has brain cancer, and he has like a day to live, and so he's going through the motions, he's thinking about life, and then the devil appears before him and he tells him, I can make you live longer. if you make one thing disappear from the world, I will give you 1 day to live. And so the guy is like, that's a lot of things I can live without in life to, stack up these days to live longer. And so he starts trying to think of things that he could live without. And it's really interesting. It's kind of slow, but it's interesting because he says we can live without cell phones. And then in the next chapter, it shows how his life has changed, how he's talking to people without being distracted constantly, and what life is like without all these little things. And it was just a really interesting concept. I don't really want to get too into it because it gets really spoilery, but if you like books like that, or books where it makes you contemplate life and how you interact with the people and the things around you, I think you would really like this one. Okay, on to the romantasies. I didn't get through a lot of romantasies. Like I said, I mostly binged sci-fi, but the first one I read was Guild. I did not like this one. I thought this one was weird. It had a really interesting concept. The execution of it is what got me, because it's just these characters are insufferable, but also they're all jackasses. There's no one worth rooting for, and it got kind of boring halfway through. So basically, there's this girl who gets turned into gold and gets paraded around this king's castle like a trophy, basically. And that's kind of the story. And then towards the end, she gets passed off to this king, and then it kind of apparently picks up this plot line, and he's like, oh, okay, I guess I can let you have the castle for once. And then she gets kidnapped by pirates, because of course that one time he finally lets her go, she gets kidnapped by pirates. I guess they're not pirates, they're land pirates. I don't know, bandits, I guess. I don't remember what they called them. I kind of checked out of the story towards the end. But yeah, basically there's this king, and the story is basically this king turns this girl into gold because he finds her on the streets, and she loves this king for no one really knows why. Now that I'm actually trying to talk about it, I realize that there really is no story or plot line to this other than just this girl complaining about being in a cage. I think the thing that bothered me the most about this book, it does have an age gap in it, and usually age gaps don't bother me, but this age gap is wild. There's a 7-year difference between them. And in the present day of this book, he is 30 to 31. She is 21. Or 20. Maybe she's younger than that. And when she talks about when she met him, he was 20. She was 13 to 14 when he found her. So he found this 13-year-old girl, bopped her, turned her into gold, and then hid her behind bars in a castle for 10 years. Please tell me how this is romantic. And she's pining for him throughout this whole book. The book starts out with her being in this cage. She's watching him get it on with what they call throttles, which are his concubines, basically. And she's like, oh man, I miss him, I miss this. And I'm just and there's no romance between them at all. Every time she's like, I just want you to touch me like you used to, he just looks at her through the bars, and it's just oh, but you mean so much to me. But it never describes why. He never says why. So I'm just why am I supposed to care about these characters. I just don't. And then they make this whole like statement about slavery, and he like tricks her into thinking he's giving her to this king because he wants this king's army to go invade this other land. And this king has a queen, by the way, and apparently she really hates her because the queen is infertile, I guess, and so she hates like all the concubines and like his golden star child. I don't know, it's kind of weird. And like, but yeah, he like tosses her onto this king, and then before like the king can like make out with her, he's like, he murders him. And he's like, oh, you don't understand. He was a slaver. He was like a skin seller. And I'm like, sir, you turned a 13-year-old into gold and trapped her in a cage for 10 years. And basically use her as ornamentation in your castle. That is like its own form of slavery. I don't think you get to talk about slavery. I don't know. It's just, it was weird. I don't know. I didn't really like it. I didn't think it was very good. I think you guys can pass this one. I know it's kind of popular. I've been seeing it like floating around. I definitely think you could skip this one. The next one I read was Whispers of the Deep. I loved this one. Usually I'm not like a huge fan of mermaids, but this one was really good. I think it's funny because like her opening statement was like, if you loved BioShock, I know you were thinking of this. And it is really interesting because the storyline is, it is a character-driven story, but like in the back of it, it's also has like an interesting concept. Basically, excuse me, basically like the land and stuff is taken over by like storms and like severe weather that is inhabitable to humans, so they made like cities underwater, and they keep getting attacked by these mer people because the mer people think they're invading their land. This is kind of like it's kind of like Pocahontas Water Edition, but I don't know, it's really interesting. It's really good. I really like the characters and the character development, and it's not like a really fast read, but it's not like a really long one either. It's a really good story. I don't know. I don't have like a whole lot to say about it, but I really enjoyed it. So much so that I got the Fake Rate Special Edition for it, which I may show off here in a bit. But yeah, that one was really good. The last one I read was Reclaimed, and this one is actually getting a separate review because I actually liked it enough that I had a lot more to talk about for it. So yeah, that is everything I got read this month. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.